All right, on this episode, we are talking big buck stories from this season and top 5 gear that you don't want to leave home without.
Hey, I'm KJ, dedicated lifelong hunter here. If you got an interest in all things hunting, you're in the right spot. Whether chasing quail across the plains of Oklahoma or in pursuit of elk in the backcountry of British Columbia, you'll always find me on the hunt.
You're not going to want to miss this one. This one is brought to you by Range Ready Studios and Smith & Wesson. All right, welcome in, Gun Talk Hunters. I'm your host, KJ, and we are in for another exciting episode because what we've got here with us today is Aaron Oelger of Hodgdon Powders, and we've been shooting film over the last couple of days. They've got some new stuff coming out. I'm not going to dive exactly into that right now because Aaron's kind of one of my go-to buddies during whitetail season. Because I always had to bounce ideas off of him and I get to hear from him because he's hunting, man, you're hunting Kansas, you're hunting Missouri, you're hunting Arkansas. You hunt Arkansas, right?
I have hunted Arkansas, yes.
Yeah, but man, he hunts all over the place and man, welcome in.
Thanks for having me. It's fun to be here.
Well, it's awesome having you here. And, you know, this season we kind of talked back and forth. This year's rut for me was a little bit different. It seemed like it was a little bit later than it normally is. Are you seeing kind of the same thing in the Missouri area and everything else?
For us, our rut occurred at the normal time, but it was not a normal rut. It was weird. We saw a few good deer, but not nearly the deer that we expected. Right. Yes, we're in drought conditions. Most of the places that I hunt in Missouri, so I expected that to impact us a little bit, but yeah. I was surprised at the lack of big deer that we did not see this year.
My gosh. See, my Facebook feed, I'll tell you this much, it says a lot different. It's like everybody's killing big deer except me and you. And I don't know why that is. Like, I guess that's just people are proud of their deer and that's great. And man, post away. I love seeing it. I love seeing success, but I love seeing my friends have success even more. And you told me a story about this just giant buck that you saw that it just didn't pan out.
Yeah, I was hunting Kansas. So my brother and I hunt together in Kansas, and it's something that I look forward to every year, just being able to get out and spend time with my brother. We have a really neat area that we hunt in Kansas, and I've been hunting it now for 10 or 12 seasons. Yeah. Really an interesting spot. I'm going to see a lot of deer, and some of those deer are going to be giants. We've shot, let's say 3 really nice deer in the last 5 years on this place. And that's exciting. That's why you go, right? We've seen some big deer, but this year I saw the biggest deer I've ever seen in person in the field. He was a giant, and that was an interesting day.
Anytime like I hear someone say it's the biggest deer I've seen on hoof, I'm kind of like, man, I've got a great story for that. So me and my buddy, we set up it was a Darkwoods blind. It's one of those big, like it looks like a giant porta-john is what it looks like. Beautiful blinds. It's now laying on its side in a field somewhere because the Oklahoma wind is harsh on blinds.
Right.
But we're sitting in there. We've just set it up, and it was right across the fence. So our plan was to ambush deer right before they got to the feeding field. And so, man, deer were coming through. And then all of a sudden I look out into the field and I'm like, how did he slip by? Biggest deer I've ever seen on the hoof. And I'm at that point, it was young in my career of hunting and everything, but I'm guessing he's probably a 180, something like that. Sure. Like a legit, like, man, come on, like just cross the fence just for a brief second. But the problem was we had archery equipment. We didn't, because it was during youth season. So it was during youth season. We were hunting archery and we were just like, all we can do is watch. And I'm sitting there, even with knowing I'm not taking like a shot, like I have the camera and I am shaking like a leaf. Like I'm just shaking. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is just so cool. Like when you see a deer of that size, always amazing.
It is. I had almost the exact same experience. I'm hunting this big draw. I'm on the side of the draw on a platform that has a redneck blind on top. I don't know if you've ever hunted a redneck blind. That's my favorite experience. Really? I think that the guys making redneck blinds really have it dialed in for whitetail hunters.
Yeah.
So I'm in a redneck blind. I have my rifle set up on an Arca rail on a tripod. I have another tripod set up with a spotter for those deer that are really long way away and want to get a better look at. So
those are the deer that you like to dream about way
That's
over
right.
there.
And the most important thing in Kansas is you got to have a heater with you, right? So the fact that you're hunting in a blind lets you
Wait,
lets
is
you
this
have a
hunting
heater.
or is this glamping?
Yeah, it was pretty. It's a pretty bougie experience,
Yeah.
I guess I would say.
I love it.
So I'm looking out middle of the day. It's 1:15, 1:30, something like that, and we're doing daylight to dark sets,
Yeah.
right? So I go out there and I go in the dark. I come out in the dark, and I've been there all half the day now, and this is on day 2 or 3 of the hunt, and I'm looking down about 200 yards away, and a doe comes out in this little bitty green
Yeah.
field, and so I have my binoculars up, just looking at her, and behind her, just a giant stands up. Now there was a lot of trees and stuff laid over, and so it was hard to see in there. But when he stood up, I've seen big deer. I'm a deer hunter.
Oh, yeah.
I love whitetail hunting. I've hunted Kansas now for a long time. I'd like to say that I'm used to hunting
Yeah.
big deer, and I completely fell to pieces, right? I could barely keep my binos up. I couldn't figure out what to do next. I was trying to decide if I should get a hold of my spotter so I can see him better. He's walking away. He was in sight for maybe 3.5 seconds. So it was so quick, but
Doesn't matter. You still have that image.
absolutely.
And they always-
every deer looks bigger from behind, right? When
Yeah.
you're walking away, but this deer was an absolute giant. So
So he looked even bigger
he did.
walking away.
My brother's asking me, that night, so how big was he? How many inches? And I said, literally, my brain stopped working. Like normally I can look at a deer
yeah.
and, you do the quick calculations on time, length, and everything, and
Yeah.
add a base of 80 or 90 or whatever you use. I could not do simple math. I could not add 10 and a 9 and an 8 together. It would not work in my mind. So he was
my
a cool
gosh.
deer though.
We were talking last night at dinner too. The one that I walked, like literally walked within 15 feet, walked, and I got sat down and I looked back and he stood up, and that was another, probably one of the top 3 deer I've ever seen in my life. And I walked within 15 feet of him, never knew he was there. And this is in like open CRP grass, and they just get good at hiding, and that's their element. They know that property. They know where, like, we're hunting on their terms,
Right.
basically. So you like the redneck blinds?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the redneck blinds. Just being able to have that, blind that's there on a permanent basis. Now this one I was hunting out of a redneck ghillie, so it's a steel frame, and then
Okay.
I come in a couple of days before the season and put the exterior on it. But that exterior has a windproof liner, and so
Yeah.
that's the big thing in Kansas. You got to
Yeah.
keep the wind off, right?
Yeah.
And so just having that there, and it really wasn't that cold this
Yeah.
year. It got down into the low 30s, but that's not
not bad.
for Kansas.
That's not bad for Kansas at all. Like I'd take that in Oklahoma any day. But man, you're right. It's that wind that cuts through that it's almost unbearable to like do an efficient sit.
It is.
And then like that goes for clothing too. I don't know what clothing you're rocking these days, but like windstopper fabrics, like those are essential in late season hunts.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Sitka and have been
Yeah.
almost since day one. I think I was probably among the first Sitka customers. I was working
Really?
for an outdoor internet and catalog retailer, so I got early access to Sitka and bought my first clothing from them. I think in year one when they launched, and their Fanatic system that came out several years
Yes.
ago. I'm a big fan of that. Now it's interesting. I'm not a Sitka fanboy.
Right.
Predominantly when I'm hunting out west, for some reason I've picked up some Kuiu pieces, and
Yeah.
I like those. The Cabela's wool system that
Ultimate.
they had, Ultimate,
Yeah.
from 10 years ago or so. I use a jacket and a vest there.
Yeah.
So, I'm pretty agnostic when it comes
Yeah.
to gear. I want stuff that works. I'm pretty notorious in deer camp that none of my camo matches, and I'm okay
Good
with
for
that.
you.
But,
Like, I have no issues with that. Now it doesn't match. It does most of mine match some of the times. Yeah. But I'm trying to I try to match like what the earth tones are doing.
right.
That's what I'm trying to do. I grabbed one piece and then the other. Like I'm actually, there is thought in there.
There is, but that's a whole other way of thinking when you're in a blind, right? It really doesn't matter
it doesn't
what
matter.
you're wearing because they're not going to see you.
Yeah. You don't. So is it the redneck blind? Like, is it outlined in black? So would a black not be better to wear?
It
Like
certainly
solid
would.
black colors or
It
something
certainly
like that?
would, but I'm up on a big bluff. I say a bluff,
Yeah.
the side of a draw, and I'm looking down predominantly. And because of where I am, they're going to see my hat,
Oh, yeah.
if anything. And as long as you're not moving around, they're not going to notice you.
That's 90% of it for sure. So when we get back from this break, we're going to talk the top 5 pieces of gear Aaron Oelger doesn't leave home without. All right, Range Ready Studios. If you're looking to become a better shooter, and you're going to find out more like through the coming weeks that, you know what, if you prepare all year long, no matter how hard you prepare, some things happen. You better be prepared, and that starts by preparing your trigger finger, and you can do that all at Range Ready Studios. We offer a wide range of classes and to train you up for your next hunting season, your next self-defense encounter. Oh, hope it doesn't come to that, but if you are, you better be prepared, and you owe it to yourself and your family to get that way. So come take a class at Range Ready Studios. The new class schedule should be up. So the 2024 schedule is starting to fill up. Claim your spot at rangereadystudios.com. All right, we're back with special guest Aaron Oelger of Hodgdon Powders, and we're talking, big buck stories at first, but now we're going to switch over to kind of gear because I'm kind of a gear nerd. Aaron, 5 pieces of gear this season, because I know we always have that stuff in the pack, but is there anything new and in your pack that you would not leave home without?
Good question. Let me think that through for a second. So, I think when you're out there, I'm probably just like every other hunter. Every now and then you forget something on the way to the deer stand or your blind
All the time.
or whatever, right? And so there are hunt killers, right?
Yeah.
But as long as you have your rifle or your bow, whatever you're looking for there. I did get a new rifle this year. I had George Gardner at GA Precision build me a new rifle last year, and this was my first year using it.
Did he get to eat this year?
No, I'm sorry. Yes, he did. So this was, I got it last year and did not, and did not have it set up in time for season.
That's right.
But I had it dialed in by the end of season last year and then hunted with it this year. And I did shoot deer in Missouri. Now it's in a 300 short mag cartridge.
Okay.
So predominantly I built it as a Western hunting rifle, but I really wanted to hunt with it this year. So I did hunt with it in Missouri.
So why go with the short mag?
So when I was kind of designing this in my head after my last elk hunt out in Montana, I was coming back from the trip and actually called George and was kind of telling him about this trip and saying, I think I need to build a new rifle. And he was saying, well, what action do you want? And what barrel do you want? And what stock would you want? And what else would you want on it? Like, I wanted flush cups and Arca rail on it. And so we kind of laid all that out. And then George said, well, just let me build the gun for you. And so I said, okay, go ahead and build the gun.
That's got to be rough.
The biggest thing we were trying to figure out was, or I was trying to figure out, I wanted to figure out what caliber I wanted it in.
Right.
And I looked at several different calibers. And this was, when I was talking to him, would have been right before the 7 PRC was introduced. That's probably what I would have done if I could have done it over. But I wanted a 30 caliber. I like 30 calibers. I like the bullet choices that you have there.
Right.
I wanted something that had a little bit of oomph. I am recoil sensitive, right?
Most people are, and most people think they aren't, but they really kind of are.
Well, I'm pretty confident that I am.
Yeah.
So I don't love recoil, but I'm shooting it with a suppressor and good bullet choices, and so that seems to work pretty well for me. I've gotten really comfortable. I probably have, 300 or 400 rounds through that rifle since I got it put together a year and a half ago. Okay. So I've shot it a fair amount. I'm pretty comfortable with it now. And, recoil on that's pretty manageable. And so, I did shoot I shot a whitetail with that gun in Missouri this year.
Really? That's awesome. All right. Couple more.
So I would say the rifle's the big thing. Certainly optics are a big piece of that. I'm a big Leupold fan. So I'm shooting a BX5, the 3 to 15 mil base reticle. That scope was new to put on this gun. So that's probably 2. I would say, I don't know how to rate this. Well, I back up. The redneck blind, man,
Yes.
I have a hard time bypassing that. You know, in talking with and listening, I'm a big fan of the Drury's podcast, and in talking with Matt Drury, you know, they've kind of dialed in and figured out how to hunt blinds. And I do like that, especially when it's in, you know, when it's a little bit colder. There's nothing like a heater when you're my age. So I appreciate that. But I do like being in a deer stand too. The knock against blinds are you can't really hear what's going on, and it's almost like you're an observer rather than a participant, right?
Yeah.
So I like being in a deer stand. And so for me, whether you're in a deer stand or a blind, the type is pretty important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably going to spend a little bit more money to make sure that I have the right gear there.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of dialed into, I like Millennium stands quite a bit.
Yep.
And so either a Millennium stand or a redneck is probably a piece of gear that I can't live without now.
Man, you got to be comfortable. Especially if you're sitting, you know, sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing that, you better be comfortable.
Absolutely.
And bring extra butane or propane.
Yeah. And for me, you know, unless it's super, super cold, right? So, you know, if it's down in the low 30s, I rarely
Turn it on.
I'm pretty much okay without it. In fact, I did go ahead and take my Fanatic system out to Kansas with me a couple weeks ago, and I never even put my bibs or jacket on. I was just I had a Beretta wool sweater, and then I had that Cabela's wool vest over that, and I was comfortable the whole week. I never needed more.
With your with that Fanatic system, now that is like, how does that can't do well with stickers?
Yeah, you got to be really careful.
I mean,
you got to be really careful about where you're walking with that. But I never, you know, I tend to be fairly hot-blooded,
right?
And so I'm going to warm up really quickly. And so for me, I always strap. I will basically walk out in my base layers to wherever I'm going, and I don't ride a side-by-side or anything like that. I walk where I'm going. And so I strap all that stuff on my pack, and then I get dressed at the base of the tree. Yeah. So for me, I'm never really in, that stuff doesn't really get worn that much because the only time I'm in it is when I'm in a tree stand.
When you're in a tree stand. Yeah.
So I would say that Fanatic system is probably my last thing that I can't live without now. You know, like I said, I've been a big Fanatic, or I've been a big Sitka user since day one. And the 2 other guys that I hunt with, I kind of got one of them sold on Sitka. In fact, he should probably get a commission from Sitka now. I really think that my buddy Matt Harris has every Sitka SKU that they offer right now. He is pretty good. I probably shouldn't be saying this on the podcast because his wife might listen, but yeah, Matt Harris has every single SKU I think that Sitka offers.
That's impressive.
And he's my go-to resource, right? I know some of those Sitka guys, but you know, now I call my buddy Harris, and he tells me exactly, okay, so for this temperature, you need to have all of this gear that you're wearing. So he recommended the Fanatic system, I don't know, year before last maybe, and I got it. And it is a game changer. It is. It doesn't matter how cold it is. The system's going to keep you warm as long as you're wearing the right stuff with it.
Yeah, and that's all that matters, really. I mean, you got to wear the right stuff. So, man, you got to get on the road. You got to head out here. So I'm actually going to cut this short. I hate to do that. But man, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Been fun.
Yeah. All you gun talk hunters out there, you know the drill. Keep those muzzles pointed in a safe direction and always be on the hunt.